Hello and welcome to Keeping It Young podcast, conversations about marriage, family, and ministry life. I'm Dave.
And I'm Bethany.
And we are the Youngs.
And we're so glad you've joined us as we continue in our series about teenagers, training our teenagers, protecting our teenagers, all of the things that we as parents need to be aware of.
And for all of you teenagers who do listen to the Keeping It Young podcast, thank you for listening to us. And thank you for thinking through the podcast and the things that we're teaching. And teens, be all in. Thank God if you have parents that are trying to help you, train you, prepare you, teach you. I just hope you teens know how blessed you are because this is preparing you for your future. And it's just an incredible blessing to have parents that are making an effort to be close to you, to train you, to teach you, to talk with you, to be connected to you. So teens, be all in. Thank God for it. Moms and dads, you that are trying, kudos to you for trying. And all of us can just keep at it. And some of you really need to pick it up perhaps because your teenagers need all the help they can get. So here's where we were last week. Let's just jump in. Any thought before we get started here?
I don't think so.
Okay, then let's just jump right in. And we're talking about ways to help our teenagers. And we talked about last week, you got to keep teaching. You just got to keep teaching, which implies that you're already doing it.
Yes.
You're already teaching. So just keep it up. Keep protecting.
Yes.
You can't protect them from somebody hurting their feelings, but you can protect them from a whole lot of garbage, a whole lot of negative influences, a whole lot of wickedness.
Right.
But it has to happen on purpose. And sometimes teens, balk at it. We don't like it. You're violating my privacy. Well, if they're living in your house, eating your food, enjoying your electricity, playing on your video game console, then you have every right. You have every right as a mom and dad and a responsibility. So keep protecting. Now,
I would say, too, you should not protect them from the consequences of a mess or a sin or something that they have found themselves in. Do not protect them from the consequences of that. The whole reason for protecting your teen is trying to keep them from getting into those scrapes in the first place. But all of our teens, no matter if they are raised in a Christian home and were saved in an early age, they will find themselves in a situation where they have done the wrong thing or said the wrong thing or behaved in a wrong way. And so please do not save them from the consequences, because those consequences will help them learn how to grow and mature.
Yeah, and it's such a normal thing in our generation for us as parents to want to rescue our teens when they're hurting. And, maybe they, by their own failure, damaged their phone or lost their phone or, whatever. Well, that's a hard matter. So it'd be a whole lot easier just to cough up the money and go get them a new phone. Yeah. But maybe let that play out. Let them do without it for a while. Mm-hmm. Maybe they did make a decision at school and they cheated on a test. And, our tendency as parents is to run in and go, come on. It was just a one-time thing. Right. Let them face the consequences of cheating on a test. Mm-hmm. Maybe they broke a rule at the school and now they're suffering because they broke that rule at the school. Let it happen. Mm-hmm. And moms and dads, that we're not talking about protecting them from the natural consequences, but from the wickedness and evil of a generation.
Right. And honestly, just think to yourself, why do I want to run in and protect my child? Is it because I'm hurting so much for my child, or because my pride was hurt that my child actually got themselves into trouble?
Sure. So that's a good one to think through. Keep teaching, keep protecting. And here's where we ended. Raise expectations, don't lower them. And what a good one. Maybe that one of the easiest ways to think that through is about work, because Bethany and I have just observed over and over again in a lot of our colleges, so I'm close enough to some colleges. I know professors and, deans and even some college presidents. And in the situation involving a lot of our colleges today, our young people are arriving at college and here they are, supposed to be, this is adulthood. They're on their own. But it's almost like, college presidents are telling me it's like they arrive and they're like 12 years old mentally and in their capabilities. Mm-hmm. And, they don't know how to do their homework on their own. They don't know how to be faithful to class. They don't know how to show up on time.
They don't know how to do laundry or make their bed or clean a bathroom.
Absolutely. And so just remember, moms and dads, a teen who can't work or can't clean or is not polite or won't spoke when spoken to.
Won't spoke when spoken to?
Won't
speak when spoken to. Sorry.
I looked at the wrong notes there out of the corner of my reading glasses.
It's totally fine.
Won't speak when spoken to.
Yes.
There, I got it.
Very good.
It's crippling them for life. And it's so normal in our generation for parents to be like, well, I'll just do the dishes. We don't want to burden the kids with having to do the dishes. I'm sure they have other things to do. And it's so normal to let our kids come in, go to their room, close the door, and be in their own little world. But moms and dads, what you're training your child there to do is to be self-focused, totally selfish, unaware of others, and unwilling to do their part to contribute their responsibilities and their gifts and talents to the life around them. And so you've got to raise the expectation.
In this area of work, maybe could we just say the chores around the house and things like that, it may not be that you need to raise your expectations so much or just keep it that way. So many times we're really good at, in the elementary school years, training our children, okay, this is, you make the bed, and on Saturdays maybe you do this, and on this day you take the trash out, and on this day you help mom with this. And so they have their set chores, and then they hit those teenage years where they do get a little busier. Maybe they play sports and they have practice. Maybe they have a after school job, different responsibilities like that. And then we can say, oh, well, they don't really have time for that. But if I were you, I don't know, in my experience, it is so much better to say, I know you're running a little short on time, but you still have to, and you tell them, these are the chores you are still expected to help with around the house. You still live here. So this is a good time for you to learn time management.
And I got to tell you, moms and dads, that's maybe more important than you think it is. Because if we're not careful, we teach our teenagers that, I worked really hard today, so I don't have to do dishes. I don't have to do laundry. I don't have to help with the cooking. I just don't need to do that. I'm not cleaning the house because I am very busy. Can you imagine how that's going to affect a teenager who gets married in the years to come and works long hours and comes home? And they're coming home to a household where there's laundry to be done and mom and dad are not there to do the laundry.
Right.
And if a young man comes home and his whole idea is, I've worked hard today, I'm not doing anything around this house because I deserve to relax and go to my room and play video games. Moms and dads, that is a marriage that will fall apart and your grandchildren will be raised in a broken home. Mm-hmm. And if your daughter never helps with the dishes,
right.
And why, I don't know what your reasoning would be. It may be that, she's so busy and, my parents were really, I've heard parents even say this, and this is a direct quote, my parents were just so hard on me and I had to work so hard. I don't want my kids to have to go through that.
Right.
Do you know the reason you have the house you have, the reason you can cook the meals you cook, the reason you're successful in the job you have is because your parents did the hard thing of
right.
making you learn to work.
Right.
And when you're not willing to do the hard thing that your parents did, even though you might not have liked it, even though you may still complain about, oh my goodness, they made me, get up every morning and work. Before I went to school, I had chores to do. And shame on us for thinking that way. Mm-hmm. We have got to raise the expectation. So your teen should be able to, or at least learning to, do things like cook meals and clean the house, do the laundry from start to finish, fuel the car and check the oil and check the tires. And if they have the privilege with a driver's license of using the family car, putting gasoline in it.
Yes.
And I know Jacob, our youngest son, who's at home, Jacob, as he's gotten older, he works now and he drives our car to work. And learning when he started having to put fuel in the car, he was startled at, oh my word. And I remember that myself thinking, oh my word, now I got to pay for the fuel. Oh my word, now I got to do it. And so the point here just simply being, how do we help our teenagers? Well, we got to keep teaching and we have to keep protecting and we have to raise expectations and not lower them. Any other thought on that?
I think we covered that well.
All right, then here's two other things we'd tell you today in the time we have left. And this one's just a really big one, moms and dads, and I love this one. Keep talking.
Yes.
Keep talking to your teenagers. Keep the door of communication open to your teenagers. And literally sometimes keep the door open. Don't let your teen live in your house in a little cave where the door is always shut, and how dare you interrupt my little cave. Talking is essential to success in relationships.
Yes, and I would urge you parents who are just headed into that teenage years, keep that connection, keep the door open. Don't allow your teen to come in from school and just walk past you. Make sure that you are connecting with them. Hey, how are you? It's good to see you. I missed you today. How was your day? What was the best thing about your day? Did anything hard happen today? Keep that communication going, because then it will continue through their teen years, and your teen will expect it and even love it that you are pouring into them. If you have already allowed your teen and you have swallowed that cultural philosophy of, oh, the parents and teens grow apart during the teen years, this is going to be a little harder for you. And you may have to sit down and have a conversation with your teen and say, you know what, I've let us grow distant from one another, and I'm sorry for doing that. And I want you to know that I miss you, and I want to spend time with you, and I want to talk to you.
Yes, and there's just some practical ways you can do that. One of the things you can do is learn how to ask questions of teenagers, questions that solicit more than a yes, a no, one-word answers.
Fine.
If you need help with that, you don't know how to do that. Just this week, the Art of Manliness podcast and blog site wrote an article this week about how to have conversations with your children, questions you can ask to your children. And I just read through them this morning, actually. So I haven't showed you yet, Bethany, but I read through them this morning, and they're so good. Questions like, did anything unusual happen at school today, is one way you can ask a question. And the answer to that from a teenager's point is no. But the way that what they said, like in the article, is what is the most unusual thing that happened at school today? And you can ask a question that leads to another one, like, did any of your friends miss school today? And the answer, may be yes. And you say, well, who missed school today and why? Do you know why they missed school? Are they okay? Mm-hmm. And so what you're doing is you're working at having conversations. And it may be that, there are times, all of us there's times when we don't want to talk.
Right.
Sometimes we have to choose the time wisely. Mm-hmm. But just remember that time is required.
True.
And maybe that's why there's so little talking, because the teen years are such busy times. Mm-hmm. Even you that homeschooling is so busy that sometimes when the schoolwork is done, it's like, let's not talk to each other.
Everybody go to their corner for a little bit.
and leave everybody alone. But, those of you that have kids in a public school or Christian school, busy demands. Right. Well, we have to realize that it takes time. Time is required. And I'd recommend 3 things here. The first one being, routine times are very helpful. And you've heard us say this, but it's worth our just hammering. Meals together, that is a routine time. And you should never have a meal at a table where a teenager comes in, gets a plate, and disappears. A teenager should always sit in their chair at the table and have adult conversation.
Yes, put their phone away.
Yeah, the phones, turn them off. Those are. It takes time to make a meal and sit down and eat it. It's so much easier to, everybody just do your own thing, grab a meal, and I'm going to chew while I scroll through Instagram. We're going to eat while we're watching TV or catching up on the news.
Right.
I'm just telling you, moms and dads, you are missing a wonderful opportunity to interact with a teenager that will accomplish things that will shock you in the days ahead, how much difference it will make.
Right.
So routine times, scheduled times. When I talked about, you tell your teenager, I'm going to be changing the oil Saturday and you're going to help me. You can also say to your teenager, hey, there's a few things we need to talk about, and maybe even give them a heads up what it is. We need to talk about, a couple of things around the house here that can be done better. And Saturday afternoon, we're going to have a cup of coffee, all of us at Starbucks, and talk about it. Mm-hmm. So that your kid knows, okay, this is on the schedule. They know exactly what's going to be talked about. Right. And they're aware that, we're going to have this conversation.
Right. And it also could just be a time where you have been busy, you and your teen just running maybe different directions, or maybe even running in the same direction, but you're not really connecting. It's just, hey, let's run here. Let's do this ministry. Let's do this ball game, whatever. And so it might be, hey, you know what? This Saturday is wide open and free. And I know we have a few things to do around the house. Let's get those done. And how about if you and I run out and grab lunch together, or we grab a cup of coffee together, or we go walk in the park together, or something, so that you have a time where you just actually say to your teenager, I miss you. I want to spend time with you. Let's just talk. Let's just catch up. I want to hear what's going on.
Yes. And, the idea here too is that it's a matter of slowing down. It just, we're so busy, and a lot of times we're busy doing things that are fine, but not that important necessarily.
Right.
And, some of you dads, you love to play golf, but 4 hours of golf on Saturday is not wrong. Golf can be a great blessing, but 4 hours of golf on Saturday that prevents you from investing in your marriage and family might not be the best thing to do when your kids are teenagers. There'll come a day when you'll just be the two of you, and then you can go play golf, or maybe you can add your kids to golf to where you're doing it together. So see, there's ways to do it, but sometimes we just need to say no to extra work projects that, I'd be really cool if I did this. I'll fit in nicely if I do this, or I need to play golf. So it's just the point of talking takes time. And if we're going to keep talking, we have to realize that time is required. But I would also say talking is giving and taking. And what do we mean by that?
So that sometimes the only time we ever see our teenager and make a point to see our teenager is when we need to tell them something that they're doing wrong. And so we go into lecture mode, or maybe you're doing something together. I know growing up, sometimes my mom and I would do the dishes together after, put the food away, and we're cleaning up the kitchen. And I would just mention something. And this was just my mom's personality. So I'm not trying to be negative about her. She was a wonderful, godly lady, and we had a very close relationship. But I would mention something that maybe someone at school did, and she would just go into lecture mode. Don't let me ever catch you doing anything like that. And she would go on and on and on. And I would think, oh, well, I wasn't meaning to get a lecture there.
Mom Dennis would go into preach mode.
Yes.
And so I'm just going to preach you a little message right here about that situation.
Yes. And sometimes as parents, we do need to do that. We need to point out the dangers of whatever is happening in that friendship or relationship. But sometimes that's our whole go-to with our teenagers. We're just lecture mode, preach mode, sermon mode, instead of remembering that a conversation is give and take.
Yeah, and asking questions in a situation like that. Something comes up, and as a parent, I can tell you what to do about that, and I know exactly how you ought to handle that, and this is what you ought to do about it. But sometimes getting the conversation going is helpful to say, well, what do you think should be done about that? How would you handle that? If it was your child, what would you do as if you were mom and dad? If you were responsible for saying how this turns out, what would you do? And so sometimes we jump in and close down the conversation. But if we work at asking questions in the course of our teaching and training to get them responding, it really does make a difference. Because talking is about giving and taking. It's about, I give some talk, I listen, we respond. Learning to converse wisely is a huge part of living successfully.
Yes.
It's so important learning how to do it.
And that's why talking is so important in your home. If you have a teenager who has learned to close themselves off from the world, then they cannot adult. They just can't do it.
Yep.
They will not be able to communicate to coworkers or bosses. They will not be able to communicate with their family someday. They will not be able to learn how to reach out to extended family over the months and years. They'll just let those relationships go. It is essential.
Absolutely. And Bethany's just pointing out there, it's essential in so many fronts. Mm-hmm. And so work at this, making sure that you're connected to your teenager. Mm-hmm. And moms and dads, if they're in a car, talk in the car.
Yes.
Encourage, if you have to make rules, hey, when we're on our way to school, let's not put on the headphones. Mm-hmm. Let's not bury our nose in our texting. When we're on the way to school in the mornings, let's have a conversation.
Right.
And you schedule it. You ask your teens to help you with it. And of course, we can all be fair, because every adult I know has this tendency to interrupt conversations now to look at a phone. And it is just, it's where we are in a society. Sometimes we just need to turn those off. We need to shut them down. We need to silence the notifications, because if you have teenagers in your house, you do want to be teaching, and you do absolutely want to be protecting them, and you do want to have expectations, but you also want to be talking and talking and talking. And moms and dads, that probably is one of the most important things we can say. Many parents never talk to their teenagers.
Right.
And it's got to change, because that's how you get their heart. That's how you hear what's in their heart. That's how you take time to listen to this is going on, and you learn how to communicate. This is how I can help you with that. This is what we could change there.
Right.
This is how you can be better in this area.
Well,
it's
and
essential.
if you are talking and connecting over just everyday life and then during fun times and just daily trying to make that connection to your teenager when it does come to conflict, it makes it a lot easier. If you do have to deal with a problem, you already have your teen's heart and they trust you and they feel safe with you. And so they may not like that you need to give them some consequences or that you may need to preach them the little sermon or whatever it is. They may not like it, but they will be more apt to listen and to lean into it and to allow you to give them direction if they know that they can be very safe with you in any other conversation.
And I would tell you, moms and dads, it's a beautiful thing when it happens. One of the great joys of our parenting was that God allowed us to have this open connection to the hearts of our children. And in their teen years, like sitting at a dinner table with our children every day, had all kinds of time for laughter, for joy, for gratitude, for stories. It was actually a very refreshing time. Mm-hmm. And our Charity, is the, kind of the kid at home alone right now. Jake is still in our family, but he doesn't travel with us. He's on he's done with school. He's in college and he's working for an electrician. So he does live at home, but he's a whole different,
right,
stage of life. Our Charity, however, is with us almost all the time. And Charity just loves to talk. She just loves to, to do dishes and share with us. Today she was watching, we do a Becca Books in our homeschool. And today she was watching a teacher. She had her headphones on and she's engaged in this classroom and she is just laughing out loud, laughing and laughing and laughing. And I'm sitting in the RV doing some work on on my message for this evening. And she just is loud. She's so loud. She's just laughing. But the reason our daughter is free, the reason our daughter can sit at a table and we talk and we share and she tells me what she thought about the service and people she met and conversations she had. Last week she told us about a pastor. We were at a function at a conference and a pastor sat beside her at a meal. Mm-hmm. We were all on the same side of a table and it was, I was sitting by a pastor, then it was in my seat and then Bethley's seat, then Charity's seat, and then another pastor. And she had a wonderful conversation with this pastor who has 8 children of his own,
right,
and also homeschools with the Becca Books. And I hope he enjoyed the conversation as much as she did.
She did. She got a lot out of it.
She had a wonderful conversation with this senior pastor of a church in Colorado, and it was just beautiful. And that she can do that. That is the plan. Moms and dads, don't think of these years as a time, we withdraw, we shut it down, we just expect our kids to be surly. Right. Well, they may be at times, just like all of us at times have down days and better days and all that. We all struggle in that way. But the expectation should be that we're close to our teenagers.
Yes.
And so we got to keep teaching, keep protecting, raise expectations, don't lower them.
Yes.
We have to keep talking. We've probably said enough about that one. And let's give one final one here. Develop routines and traditions that draw you closer to your teenager.
Yes.
And I was thinking this morning, sweetheart, about our pastor and his family.
Yes.
Because one of the things that our pastor and his family does is they are probably the master of traditions.
They are.
And they have so many traditions in their family. They have a fall tradition to where all the kids even can bring some friends over if they want to. They have a cookout in the backyard. They have a fire, a bonfire. Mm-hmm. And I always know what's happening because Pastor always calls and asks if he can come get firewood from my stack of firewood. and then I see it on social media, maybe a picture of where all the kids they all go buy pumpkins and they carve a pumpkin. Now you may not,
or they paint it.
Or they paint it. You may think, well, we're not into that sort of thing. But it's just a celebration for our family. It's fall. We live in Florida, so the nights are a little cooler now, so we can have a fire outside. We'll have hot dogs, and we'll have just a meal outdoors, and set up lawn chairs. And you know what? They have teenagers, and the teenagers are involved in that.
Yes.
And I know they have traditions for like Valentine's Day. Almost every event, our pastor's family has a tradition about that event.
Yes.
Am I right about that?
Yes. And it's not something that as the teens get older, we've been watching this just from afar. Our pastor's wife does put things on social media, and then we do live in their neighborhood. So we just kind of observe this. But as their children have gotten older and stepped into the teen years, it's not something that their teens are kind of like, oh, well, I'm not going to be there. It is like something that their teens actually seem to look forward to.
Or at least it appears they do.
Yes, and they seem to enter in with great joy and look forward to those celebrations. And so that is something that I find very encouraging about them and very refreshing, and maybe something that you could develop in your family, not something that you're going to be like, oh my goodness, this is just something extra for me to do. What fits in your family? You may not be able to have, I know at Valentine's Day, they have a formal sit down dinner where Alana makes a beautiful meal, and it's the same, I think, menu every Valentine's Day, but they get a little dressed up and they have a wonderful dinner. That may not fit your family. You may need to, break out the paper plates and order pizza, but something that you're going to do every Valentine's Day, we're all going to get together. I was talking to just a friend of mine just this week, and she was talking about how that kids grow up and they do different things for holidays. And that's a whole nother episode where if you have grown children and they're married and they have in-laws, you need to share with your kids' in-laws those holiday seasons and things like that. But she was talking about during the teenage years that you make friends in your area and you think, oh, it's a holiday, I'm off school, I can go spend time with my friend at their house because they do all this cool stuff. And how that her mom reminded them, you know what? Teenage friendships come and go. And you may still be friends with them when you grow up, but your family will always be here for you. Your family will be at your wedding. Your family will be there and wanting to celebrate with you when you get married and you have children. And so we are going to invest in our family for today. So if you have teenagers that are kind of starting to pull away a little bit, hey, I'm not going to be there Christmas Day, I'm going to go hang out with my friend, then just remind them, no, this is a tradition time for our family, and you can hang out with your friend later.
So you can make these routines like big events, like our pastor's family, Valentine's Day, or the fall cookout that they do, or bonfire, I guess, maybe the better word. But we had traditions that maybe were more simple than that, but
Yes.
they were beautiful times of connecting us to our children. Sunday night, we would go to church.
Yes.
And then we would usually do pizza and a movie after church on Sunday night.
Uh-huh.
And it was just a time where we'd laugh and we'd get pizza and we'd talk and then we'd close out the evening with family devotions and prayer. And, and family devotion was another routine for us, a time
Yes.
when we all were together every evening, maybe to read something in the scripture, to share something from God's word, to share some things about thankfulness, and then to have prayer together as a family.
Yes.
Those routines that we developed, those traditions is what kept our family very close.
Right.
And we had traditions about Thanksgiving, traditions about Christmas. We have traditions about birthdays, and when they were younger, half of birthdays.
Yes.
And let's get all these traditions. So what I would just say to you is develop routines and traditions that keep your teenagers close to you. And you may need to tweak them here and there. That's okay.
Right.
We don't let them become our master. They're a servant of ours to help us to connect to our
You
teenagers.
can flex your schedule a little bit. Maybe your teenager does have a job and you're like, well, it's always the third Friday of this month that we do whatever. Well, if they have to work, then don't get all upset about that. Just flex it a little, have it Saturday night or the next Monday, whatever.
So we're out of time here, and we're so happy you joined us for these last 2 episodes. We've just been talking about ways to help your teenagers. And what a privilege, Mom and Dad, to raise teens. And you can teach, you can protect, you can raise expectations, you can work on your communication, keep talking, and you can develop routines and traditions that draw you closer. And Beth and I just want you to know that it works, and it's
Yes.
a beautiful thing. And we want to encourage you, but this is not to try to add more to your life. You're busy. This is to encourage you. Your teens are so important, and your part in your teenagers, it's essential.
Yes, it is.
And so may the Lord help you. Thanks for joining us again. The Christmas season's right here, so we'll be doing some Christmas episodes coming up, and we're so excited about that as well. I hope you have a great day, a great week. Whatever you do, remember to serve the Lord with gladness. We'll see you next week.
The Keeping It Young podcast is a Bax 5 Media production.